This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the UK's #1 coral selling website, prestigereef.co.uk and reefdork.etsy.com for all your 3D printed aquarium accessory needs. What's up, YouTube? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prestige Reef Dork Show. Good news for you. Today, we're going to be talking about LED lights for 2 hours solid.
We are
Nothing
not.
else.
We are not. Not
We
a
are
chance.
No. So first off, there were a load of people in the chat about 2 hours early because I've been in Finland for the last few days, and I set the live stream up when I was in Finland, and I forgot that it does it based on your local time. So I said 7 o'clock. But it read that as 7 o'clock Finland time, which is 2 hours behind, whatever. So So people thought it was starting at 5 o'clock. So sorry if you joined early. Although one thing I did notice. I clicked on like an hour later, and there were only 3 likes, Ryan. One of which was me.
Not good.
This isn't a free service. It costs you.
Yeah.
It costs a like. I'm a very needy YouTuber. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about. And actually, that was the part of the reason that the thumbnail is the light. That's just in the news. So if you just clicked on this to watch this, just to talk about the new light from Red Sea, it'll be in the news section at the end. We'll talk about a load of other nonsense between now and then. I just didn't want to spend my holiday thinking about what thumbnail I could come up with for the live stream. So I was like, that'll do.
That's right. I'm sure everyone everyone understands. Did you visit any fish shops while you're in Finland? Or was it a specific?
I would be amazed if there is a big reef keeping scene in Finland.
Right.
And the place I was in, because it's freezing cold, basically. The place I was in is the northern part of Finland, which is in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
So shipping corals and fish, I guess, isn't. I mean, there might be people there, but if there is, if you are in Finland, if you're in Rovaniemi or any further north, tell me I'm wrong. But I'd be.
Wouldn't
surprised.
it be funny if there just so happens to be one person from that area?
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah. I'll have you know. But yeah, so no fish shops, just just ice and forests.
Nice. Well,
But yeah, so what was I going to say? So anyway, right, so we're going to be talking about just the usual nonsense, basically. 2 hours of fish keeping nonsense. One thing I would say, I checked my analytics for the last live stream, and normally on most videos, like a normal video that you upload to YouTube, when you look roughly, a broad estimate, 20% of people who watch it are subscribed, 80% are not subscribed, give or take. On live streams, it's the other way around. Last week, it was 80% of people who watched are subscribed, 20% who watched are not subscribed. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because if you're one of the 20% and you're watching this and you're not subscribed, if you've watched more than 2 live streams, you're probably hooked. I know it's not something you want to think about. You don't want to have to think, oh God, I got to watch these 2 dickheads every week for the rest of my life now. But that's what's happening. So you might as well subscribe. Is all I'd say, and like as well, because obviously I need likes because that's what sustains me.
he's very needy today. People help him
Very
out.
needy, yeah.
Help him out.
Yeah,
I literally have never clicked the like button because I don't because I don't have I can't see what everyone else can see, can I?
Yeah.
There is no like button. I'm not on YouTube, if you see what I mean.
No, you're in the software, not which is separate to YouTube. But
someone click like for me, and then let me know which one of you did it for me. So.
Excellent. What the other thing I was going to say is though, so when I got back, I was like, let me just have a look at my YouTube subscription feed, because Ryan promised a video last week.
I forgot. I didn't.
I had a look.
There is no. Okay, so I was meant to have a nice free day today. This will show you I'm a terrible grandson. Although, as I've mentioned previously, I don't do my family doesn't really do Christmas or birthdays. It was my nan's 88th birthday today, so although I was going to spend the day doing the we're actually getting together as a family next weekend for it, which was my confusion, but it was today. So rather than doing a video for you all, I decided to let you all down to go see my sweet old nan and spend the afternoon with her. So
I will just about forgive you, but the only thing I'll say is you could have done this video a few days ago, couldn't you?
Of course, but we both know I only ever do the video on the day at the very last minute. That's when I work at my best.
I know.
And when I say my best, I mean like my most rushed. That's
Yeah,
when I work.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What was the video about? Give us a teaser.
No, as well, the video I was going to do was just based on the coral farm. If I'm honest, it was nothing particularly. It wasn't particularly exciting. I was just going to go through. We found someone.
Finnish Reefkeeper, Carvin and Mia. Probably.
There you go.
Hello, Carvin.
Let us know what it's like over there.
Are you? I bet you're in Helsinki or somewhere south.
And also, what's it like over there? Is there a big reef keeping? No,
it's 2. Come on.
Can you check the analytics to make sure they're actually in Finland?
I will. It doesn't necessarily mean they're in Finland, but yeah, cool.
True. So with regards to the video, I just wanted to. I've not done an update on the coral farm for a really, really long time. And to be fair, I was even sort of what I've been doing is I've been kind of preparing for the video. When I say throughout the week, I mean yesterday. Again, doing things last minute. When you have a coral farm, the corals grow onto the trays. Like you're taking one piece out of here and one piece out of here, and over time you lose the uniform look of a shop. You know, when you go into a shop, normally it's like rows of one type of coral, row of next type of coral, rows of the next type of coral. We are constantly like picking and moving things and fragging them, and sometimes you need to move a few things to take pictures. So over a period of time, the tray doesn't look quite the same anymore. For example, my wall corals, I've got like 5 different types. And rather than being in 5 different rows, I had like a mix of all 5 of them all over the place. So I wanted to, I'm doing this partly for when you come down to film the coral farm as well. So I want it to look like you're obviously, if a video goes on your channel, it goes on there forever. And so, which means whenever someone sees it from now until YouTube eventually collapses, it will be there. So I need it to be on. I'm not like someone who just has a fish tank that like you're filming. It's like this will be there, and people will. If I'm going to go to a shop, I usually look at the shop on YouTube first. I go, is this shop worth traveling?
If it looks awful, people will assume it looks awful. Not that it's going to look awful, but exactly.
Yeah.
If it looks 10% below par, whatever is a better way of putting it.
Yeah, so I literally that's my hesitation. Like you've been to the coral farm loads of times. Most of the time it looks fine, and then sometimes you go, oh, there's a bit of salt creep there. So,
I just say this I say completely innocuous comment, and it just goes straight into Ryan's head.
Yes. Well, look, I'm proud of what I do, and I would say I do pretty well, but I think people like expect a lot from me. I think I think I would be people. Yeah, basically, if people are buying corals from you, they expect you to look after the corals the same way they would look after the corals. So it needs to look. Everything needs to look very neat, perfect. So that's what I've been doing. I've been organizing the trays, even though you wouldn't care and I probably wouldn't care. But I just, as I said, I want it for the long term. But at least I'm thinking about it for you. So
yeah, good.
And it looks, to be fair, it looks better. Is people say this all the time when they come into the coral farm, because I've had quite a few new customers recently. It's overwhelming when you first walk in there.
I was going to say, yeah.
There is so much like just coral everywhere. Not when I say everywhere, I mean there's just so many varieties and colors and like obviously different species and everything. So if it's easier for people to buy, potentially they will buy more. So if you can look at the wall corals and go, oh, look, there's only 5 rather than it looks like there's 20 because obviously they're all mixed up together.
If they're all over the place as well, it's kind of like it's hard work to see what's what. And you can't see the wood for the trees. Whereas if they're all like Montes, Cyphastria, whatever, there's the only 2 corals I can think of.
Usually they're kept in species because obviously they don't sting each other then. But color variation, sometimes it's not quite perfect. So and the zoas are the worst because when I usually frag zoas, there's a whole bunch of them, and if you're fragging zoas, they close up. So if I'm fragging, I don't know, let's say 4 different types, and I'm gluing, you frag them all, and then you glue them all at the same time. you can't tell when they're closed what color they are. So you put them into the rack. The next morning you come in and you go, oh, they're just a mess. So you then have to rearrange them all. Rather, I could just do it one at a time, but I try and do I try and do it in batches just to speed it up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've got a real love of it again at the moment.
Okay.
I think you can probably tell. I think with anything, you even with your job or any job, you go through stages where you're like, it's like not enjoying it as much, and then you go through stages where you go, actually, this is, for example, with you might go, oh, that's a really interesting case or project or whatever you're working on. I'm not sure what you specifically call them, but that's what it's become like for me. And I think also because the sales have significantly increased in the last sort of 10 days, it's definitely coral buying season. Like all of a sudden, all these people you haven't seen for ages, like come out of the woodwork. Like, oh, are you around? I'm like, oh, hello, not spoken to you for 8-9 months.
Okay. So it's because kind of, so January's out of the way, right? So because no one's got any money in January, but now we're into February and just about March actually, where people, you've got a little bit of money, as in you're not completely and utterly broke, but also it's bloody dark outside. Still, it's dark now. What time is it? It's 7:10. It's dark, so it's depressing. So you want to buy corals, don't you?
Yeah.
Perfect time. So this must be busiest time of the year. This time.
Yes, I would like I believe it is the busiest time of the year. You start to compete with pond season for fish keepers. I don't know if our shop would know better than me, if I'm honest, if it's busier now or if it's busier in August, because obviously it's starting to get cold in August as well. So it'd be one of those, I assume, but it's not like the peak of summer and it's not Christmas time.
No,
because obviously people are spending their money on other things. But for me, when I start to really love it again, it's not like a job that I enjoy. It's like a hobby that I get to do as a job. So you see how it's like a real love.
Totally.
So as I said, sometimes you waver a little bit, and then sometimes you feel like this. You feel unbelievably blessed or lucky, and that's how I feel at the moment. So it's like I spent my day in there yesterday. Remember Saturday, people don't normally work. I spent my day in there because I had to get a day off from Rachel. She went out to do something else, and I was like, I could do anything I want. And I went, I'm going to work in the coral farm.
Happy days.
So
what were you fragging and stuff? What were you up to?
Fragging, tidying up. I breaking some of the encrusting corals off the trays. I've given up on trying to keep the trays black. It is a losing battle. Trying to keep the coralline algae off. It's just it grows so fast that is a waste of time.
And you've got urchins in there, so it's not like there's not much else you can do, I guess.
Literally, I was taking all the corals off, putting them into citric acid, put them back in. But it's very time consuming. And if it's in a shop, I kind of understand because people are visually seeing it every single day.
And if you've got staff, you can rotate that, and if it's just you doing, you could try a scarus koi parrotfish.
No, I'm all right. I'm all right. I know why you said it, but not for me. But
to be fair, even if you manage to get rid of the coralline, you still have patches of it or other algae that would take away, that wouldn't, because the whole point is that the racks look shiny and black. They're going to look off-coloured no matter what you've got, even if it's just biofilm or whatever. So that wouldn't fix it.
I've got, I think, something like 50 racks. And if you're putting them in, there's literally 50 of them, I'm pretty sure. It might be 45 or something, but it's a lot of racks. So it just becomes.
You'd have to do that every week.
Exactly, and it's so there's no point basically. So I've given up on that, but what I am doing it, and people usually want coralline algae anyway. Like the amount of people that message me saying, "Can I have some coralline algae?" But it's not worth it for me. To they're better off buying on a coral plug, if you see what I mean, rather than off a tray.
You buy enough corals, you'll get coralline algae, even if it's not visible.
Look, don't get me wrong. Very, very occasionally, when someone's put an order in, they say, "Oh, can I have some coralline algae as well?" I will do it, but I'm not. There's risk. It's far more risky to scrape a load of coralline algae off the back wall of a tank than it is to send a plug to someone. because that coralline algae that's been on the back wall of the tank has been there probably for months, which means that anything that might be in the tank that you don't want in the tank could be on that algae, whereas the plug have probably been in there for 2 or 3 weeks, potentially, or a week or however long. So it's far more dangerous for people that are thinking about doing it. You will get coralline algae eventually anyway, but it's far more dangerous to get it off someone's tank than it is just to let it come in naturally. That it's just, I really believe that's true.
Yeah. It's funny because and I was the same as well when I set up my first tank. But people are obsessed with the idea of I've got to have coralline because it's easy and it looks really cool and it's not expensive like a coral is. But I just have no interest in coralline now. Just don't want the stuff.
I don't mind the look of it, and it's nice to have like patches of it. But like, well, there's a bit of rock and a bit of coralline. If it's just all purple, it looks less like natural than like bits of it. But it will get into your tank eventually anyway. So don't worry about it. The only other thing, there's a couple of other things to mention actually. Do you remember last week I told you about the Sophastria and the Chalice, which were fighting each other, the Sophastria was winning? I have found an even weirder one that like it shocked me when I realized it. If I said to you, I already know that you know the answer. I said to you, which is going to win between a Goniopora and an acro, like a barley green slimer acro. It's not a barley green slimer, but it's a similar one. Which would you like naturally believe would win?
I'll play the game. I would believe that the Gonny would win because Gonnies can be pretty aggressive.
Yes. I have a Gonny where it's on one half of, it's more than half, but like 3/4 of it is open and 1/4 of it is dead where the acro is touching it. So there's an acro that's fallen over onto a Goniopora, and for whatever reason, it's stung the Gonny and has killed it. So I wonder, will that happen every single time?
Yeah.
Or is it just that specific time that it happened? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so I can't remember. I can remember with my SPS tank. Obviously, they SPS sting each other all the time, and it's like a slow death. One will eventually win, and then kill and encrust over the other one. But I can't remember if I had any SPS killing LPS. Not that I didn't have many LPS. To be fair, I don't remember that. But
I just want, how if you had two people that had a fight with each other, like if they're relatively evenly matched, one would win one time and one would win another time, wouldn't it? It would be. Does that work with coral, or will if one coral kills another coral, it will always be that way? Because I'd be interested to know.
It feels like because if two people fighting, you'll learn and that sort of stuff. Whereas corals killing each other is because of things within their biology, isn't it? So I would expect it to always be the same, but it could well be that it becomes more resistant, and then it's weird for an acro to kill a god.
Really look, I'll send you a picture if you're unsure.
I'm not saying I don't believe it. Yeah, I'm just saying it's weird.
I've started to look at the trades a little, obviously, while I'm organizing stuff a little bit more closely, and you start to notice these weird things that are happening with, especially with things like some of the Leptocerus and the things that are encrusting onto the trays, because once they're on the tray, they have the ability to get onto other corals, and that's when you start to go, oh, that's weird. I didn't expect that to happen. So yeah, that was. I'm trying to think if there was another one, but that was the one that stood out to me. There's a few different Sophastrias. I was thinking about starting to sell corals where they are like that, where it's two different mixes of Sophastria, because Sophastria will usually cohabit with each other. So if you have one plug that's got two types on, will it eventually? It's not. I don't think it's like Zoas where one will usually take over the other. I think with Sophastria, they're usually not a no man's land. They'll actually touch each other.
Yeah. So I've had a couple of experiences like that. I've had one where I had a large colony of Sophastria, and there was a tiny little frag of Sophastria, and the large colony eventually engulfed the small Sophastria. But I think that's just because there was so much of it. But the other time I've mentioned before, there were these two big, reasonable sized colonies of Sophastria, and they met each other, And it was like shyness of the crown in trees, where trees grow tall and they don't touch each other, and no one really understands why. It was like that. They weren't touching each other. They were just growing up with a gap in between each other. And then eventually, after probably a year or two, they eventually got to the point where they did actually touch. And it was just a stalemate. There was not one didn't touch. It would take the other one. So yeah,
that's what it's like in the coral farm. Because what I could do, like this would be quite pretty if you could make it like look a bit more natural. I could cut Sophastria into four triangles, and then stick those 4 triangles on a larger plug, and each of those plugs would have 4 types of Sophastria on it. It would take. Yeah, it would look cool, and I think people would buy them. But it's the same as, I don't know. I come up with these ideas sometimes.
I wouldn't expect that to look cool long term, because they wouldn't merge into each other properly and like blend, would they?
No, but they would grow out from outwards as 4 different types. Something that has been selling, and the reason I came up with this idea, one day I just went, you know what? I'm going to just put 2 digis together, a red digi and a green digi, and just stick it in the same frag plug, and people want them.
Yeah, okay.
So they create nice contrasting colors, and they're slightly cheaper than buying them separately. So why wouldn't they?
So I recently bought 3. I don't know if they're Bernards or Gonnies, but they're the same. Basically the same sort of thing. 3 a frag of 3 Bernard or Gonnies, whatever, on the same plug, and they were all really nice coloured. But I've had them for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe not quite that long, and they've grown out quite a lot, and they're just kind of. Because they were so close together, they need to be separated. So now I want day one, they look really cool, as you could see the colours separately and all that sort of stuff. Whereas now, when I remember to do it, and when I get time, I'm going to pull it out and cut it into thirds and split them away, because they just don't look good when they're so close together. Because when a coral grows big, which doesn't take long, then they grow big. They don't mess around. So
yeah. I just Reese bought one of the digis, so he'll probably buy one of those Sophastrias.
There you go. I was trying to find the digis on your website, but it's not there.
They've sold out, I think.
Oh, I see. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
And that is it. Other than the fact I saw one of those new TMC tanks. So
what did you think of it?
I think it's exactly what the hobby needs. It is like exactly what the hobby needs. Like, don't get me wrong, they're similar to the flowable tanks. There's obviously inspiration has been taken from there. Why are you laughing? Because that was my diplomatic wording.
Yeah, because I said the same last week.
Oh, is that what you said? Is it? But look,
basically,
they're nice tanks, and what I actually do like is, because I realized something about them. This hobby has become very, very expensive, and that would keep a lot of people out of the hobby. Now, people are willing to spend money on things they love. So if you love cameras, for example, you're willing to spend a lot of money on cameras, aren't you? Well, I know you
am, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Now imagine if the first camera you ever bought cost $5,000. Are you going to get into cameras? No.
No, I'm not.
So the tanks are basically designed for people to have a clownfish or a goby and a couple of soft corals or whatever. They're not like for high-end acro keeping. If you want a real challenge, you can have acros in it probably, but you might need to upgrade the light. So don't have acros in them.
Yeah.
But when I saw them, I just thought, this is like, it's a kit which is easy. It comes with a protein skimmer. Like, it takes all the hassle away. You add a heater, put salt and a bit of rock, and think it's like, it's making things as easy as possible for people. It's a cheaper price rate. I don't know
exactly. So 200 quid is like, do you know what? Because if you're spending $5,000 all in on everything, no one's going to do that lightly. If you're spending 200 quid, that's like go on then, sod it, let's do it. It's an easy decision.
I think that shows that we have lost our touch with regards to spending on the hobby.
I'm not going into any shop at any point saying 200 quid, do it. If you're interested in it, 200 quid is not a barrier, is it? It's always a low barrier.
Oh yeah, I think because I tried beekeeping and I hated it. I did it for like 3 years, and I think the barrier to entry for that was like £1,000.
Exactly.
So it wasn't like, that might be wrong. I can't quite remember, but it was around that amount, I think. So to pay £200 and go, let's see if I like this, after doing some research and stuff like that, I think it's what, and it's not too small as well. is sort of just the right size where you can put it on the side or a cabinet or something. And
have a couple of clownfish. Actually, it fits on the IKEA Kallax unit, which I've got behind me actually.
Yeah.
which way? So they're really popular. Those IKEA Kallax things, and it'll fit on that.
Yeah, and I just think it's like a gateway into the hobby. And if you do love it, if you get it and you love watching the clownfish and seeing those soft corals grow and the xenia go all over the place, and then you want to spend the $5,000 on a tank, and I'm not saying you do make that sort of leap, but you see what I mean. Yeah. I thought when I saw them, I was like, yeah, they're a good idea.
This is what we're talking about, by the way. Is that it? No, that is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all the kit that all comes with it.
Do you know how the price compares to the Fluval? Because I don't know how they compare.
So I think the Fluval, the only thing with Fluvals, because they've been out for so long, you don't have to wait long for it to be on sale. So I'm pretty sure they're the same price, £200.
Yeah.
For all the kit. But the Fluval, if you wait a couple of months, which not everyone does, but if you're prepared to wait a couple of months, you'll get it on sale. Whereas the TMC, because new, you won't. Yeah. But then it's not quite a like for like comparison, because you get a skimmer with the TMZ one that you don't get with the Fluval. The Fluval, they're both slightly different dimensions. Some people will prefer one over the other. I think take it or leave it. Don't think it really matters. The Fluval has got like a cantilever underneath. It's like a cantilever style, so it looks like it's floating off the table. The TMC one doesn't. There's pros and cons of each, and it's not a complete like for like comparison in terms of the equipment you get. But basically, they're £200 each, and take your pick. Yeah,
well, as I said, if it's unlikely that anyone's watching this who's considering getting into the hobby, but there's possibly there is.
I bet there are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way to go. I wouldn't have recommended nano tanks originally, but because of the price of everything, I remember when chromists were like £4 or something. Or you could get 5 for it's just not the same anymore. So when I previously I would have said nanos might not be for everyone because they're supposedly they are slightly harder. I know I've said it's easier to do a wall change and stuff, but if you're only keeping the basic stuff, then a nano's fine.
And that's the other thing is that equipment is expensive and there's no getting away from that unless you do sort of the cheap Fluval Evo TMC first wave sort of thing. But livestock's expensive as well. Yeah. But if you've only got a little tank, if you've got a 6-foot tank to fill, you're going to spend a lot of money on fishing corals. If you've got a 2-foot tank to fill, it's less than 2, isn't it? Then you can only buy like 10 corals. Well, you'd probably buy 30 if you really wanted to. But, you're only going to buy a couple of fish. So it doesn't matter that a pair of clownfish is £50 or whatever, or £100 if you get a fancy one. It's not so much of a big deal. Whereas if you were buying for a 3-foot tank, you've got to think, well, I need clownfish. I'd probably get a small tang. I want a blenny. I want a wrasse. And then suddenly you're looking at your list and you're going, oh, it's £300 there. Yeah, or more. So, yeah.
It's interesting because I didn't think I would think much, and I had to look at it properly when I saw it. But because I've never been a nano tank fan. I had a nano tank on my desk at work once. It was a pain, but it was a very small. It was more of like almost a pico tank. It was, and it only had a few zoas and stuff in it. And remember, if it's at work, I wasn't there 2 days a week and things like that. And also, it was a massive distraction. Anyone who thinks it's a good idea to put a fish tank on your desk at work, you spend half your day looking at the fish and not doing the work. So it didn't last long because I became vastly less productive by having the tank on the desk. But as I said, I've never been a big is it a proponent or I've never been for nano tanks basically. But when I saw it, I was like, actually, not a bad idea. But I still wouldn't get one myself because I like massive tanks, don't I?
Yeah, indeed. So I would, but actually, I bought a Fluval Evo before.
I would start with one. There's nothing wrong. I would get one at the beginning, but I already have 3 systems to run. I don't need a 4th system.
So I wouldn't do one now because I'm the same. I don't want more water in the house to test and to test once every 6 months or whatever, but to look after and water change and that sort of stuff. But I did do one before with Fluval Evo and I enjoyed having it. It's just that the only thing is, and these tanks, the Fluval Evo and the TMC First Wave aren't really aimed at people like me, because when I look at that tank, it's great that it comes with all the equipment and both of them, they come with a light that will do a perfectly decent job of soft corals and some basic LPS corals.
Yeah.
But realistically, I look at it and I go, the shimmer's not quite enough, or I want to be able to dial in the royal blue a bit higher, that sort of stuff. So I then go and change everything and
but no lights are good enough for you other than the exact lights you have at the moment. So
I know, but you then go. For me, I go and spend a fortune upgrading it, and you can do that. It kind of defeats the purpose. But at the same time, if you've got a small space and you want a small tank, you can do that with them. But they're just, because they're budget tanks, they're not like they're not like Red Sea or Cade or Waterbox quality. They're not really nice. So it's a bit weird to spend 500 quid on equipment on a cheap tank like that. But it's perfect if you want to dip your toe in the water, and they're still nice. They still look good. But
I've always wondered if I would. So if I had no tanks, and like life's so much better when you only have one tank. Anyone who has more than one tank, you're crazy.
It's a fact.
Life is just crazy. I've always wondered, like, could I appreciate it? Because it would be very different having a big tank. So I wouldn't like try and cram it with, like, you could just put a few soft corals in there and a few, like a couple of small fish or whatever. I probably wouldn't go for clownfish. I'd go for something a bit different, like the white tiger goby or something like that. And it gives you a chance to experience reefing in a different way. So I'm never going to put soft corals in the water box tank, although there is a toad still in there at the moment. But I would put it in a smaller tank. So, I just wondered if I would experience reefing differently with a nano tank.
So I think you would, and the only thing is, I found with the fluval one, I intended to keep that for a long time. My initial plan was to keep that for a few years, but I got to the point after about a year where I was like, it's really small. Brilliant to start with. Hello, brilliant to start with, but I was like, it's too small. And even the Cade, which is a really decent size for a nano tank, borderline not a nano tank, even that, I'm now like, I wouldn't mind something a tiny bit bigger. That's I can live with that. That's okay. But the fluval, I was like, it's too small.
So, you'll be saying that about the Red Sea tank soon.
Yeah, well, I mean,
you're like, once it starts to fill out, you're like, oh yeah, I could get a bigger tank. That's definitely the problem with this hobby.
Yeah, I don't have room for it. I know I said that when I had a 4-foot tank.
Yeah,
but I don't have. I could literally fit a 7-foot tank in my room. Yeah, but it would be ridiculous. You'd have to go sideways past it every time you walk through it. So it's just
or here's an idea.
Extension.
Do what I did. No extension. you know the table you have, like in the other room. Take the table out, fish tank in there, sofa. Now, don't say no. Don't say no, because I took out the table in the kitchen to put the fish tank in.
But you want a fish tank in. The most important thing about buying a tank is put it in the room that you spend most time in.
Yeah.
The dining room, I walk through the dining room, but I'd never ever spend time in there. Yeah. Living room, I'm there. So
yeah, my old tank was in the hallway, and it was weird because I'd never ever had a chance to sit and look at it. Like I would go and maintain it, and I actually used to love maintaining it because that was when you could sort of really interact with the tank. But because it was in the hallway and there was nowhere to sit or anything, like I never ever looked at it. It was like, what's the point of having a tank you never look at?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
but that was a 1,000-litre tank, like when it was at my parents' house.
Of course, yeah. Okay.
So that is my week in reefing. There you go. I've done my allotted 30-minute time.
Excellent.
So your turn.
Did I have a week in reefing? I was away for most of the time, but there's still. I'm not going to miss the opportunity to buy some stuff I don't need to do with the tank, right? So So that happened. First off, both tanks are more or less fine. I had a really quick look at the one downstairs, the Red Sea, and it looks fine. And I had
to clarify, Alex has been back 2 hours. So 2 hours ago, he arrived home. As when he's saying he's not checked the tanks, that's why.
So got back not long before the stream. Went quickly into the living room. It looked fine. There were no fish stuck to power heads, so as far as I'm concerned, and all the corals there was nothing that was like, there was no obvious problem, so fine, leave it. This one, there was a bit more algae on it, so I cleaned the algae. I had a pet sitter come in and feed the cat, and I asked them to chuck some food in both tanks as well. And the Cade, actually, it needs a big water change. I'm going to do a decent sized water change tomorrow because there's a couple of the acanters shriveled up, which they're not normally. So it might be that it's just been overfed, because I was like, look, just put one pot in. That's it.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep it simple. I don't want to,
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm feeding it, I'm not putting a full pot of food, like a cube of frozen in it. But they're fine. So they lasted 4 or 5 days without me, no problem, all fine, everything good. But I bought some stuff. So a couple of months ago, you'll remember I ordered an acclimation box.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned it after I'd ordered it on the live stream.
Yeah.
And there's 99.9% chance that had nothing to do with what happened next. But then it didn't turn up. And I got an email a couple of weeks later saying, sorry, it's not going to happen. You're not having it anymore. And when the thought's in your head, I'm sure it wasn't this, but the thought is in your head, I wonder if other people bought it and they got a few orders and they were like, bollocks to it. We're just going to, we're not selling it we're not going to send it to this guy. Because I was abroad. I was in obviously UK and this was buying from America. So I do wonder if it's that. I'm sure it wasn't that. But anyway, one came back in stock recently, and I'm only mentioning it now because I've got it physically. I have it here.
Yeah.
And it's there's a link in the description, and I'll show you it. But before you get excited and buy it, I'm going to say some rude things about it. So first off, the one I wanted was 16 inches long by 6 inches by 8 inches. This is 12 inches long by 6 inches by 6 inches. So it's not as long and it's not as wide, and it's a little bit small, to be completely honest with you. It's got some really cool features. It's got a little lid that folds up like that. It looks smart because it's acrylic. It's got its magnets. I really wanted a magnetic one. I don't know how strong these magnets are. I've got 19 mil glass. Don't know if they're going to be strong enough for that. And there's also, you can get a little a divider. So if you wanted to separate two fish, you can just slide a divider into the middle. I wouldn't ever do that because
it wouldn't have much room unless they're tiny
then, exactly. So so it's just I like that I have it, but that's small, isn't it? That's really, I think lengthwise a foot is just about okay, but 6 inches by 6 inches width and height, not sure about that. And it's like, obviously I saw the dimensions on paper and I saw that it wasn't as big as the last one.
Yeah.
But when you get it in your hands, suddenly you're like, now I know what it's like. And actually, an extra 16 inches versus 12 inches, that's a big difference. And as much as anything, 8 inches wide versus 6 inches wide makes quite a big difference as well. So I don't know. It's by a company called Reefing Art. And this is the box. It's on Amazon, of course, because everything is. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Generally speaking, new fish, the fish that come into the hobby are usually the smallest fish of those species, unless you specifically want to get a big one. So it's harder to get a big powder blue tang, for example, than it is to get a tiny powder blue tang. You might get away with it.
I think it might be okay. It's not so small that I'm like, no way, I might as well throw it in the bin. It's just I wouldn't have minded it if it was bigger. To be fair, I'm only likely to put small fish in it, small tang, some small wrasse, whatever. So maybe it'll be fine. But just, I would have liked it to be bigger. But hey, there was a so obviously you watch all the videos, Ryan. Serious Reefs.
I actually started to watch one. I watched the one on the filefish. So
yes,
they did an orange spot filefish. Yeah, so. I think the reason I didn't watch them was just because I don't even know why. Basically, I just forgot. So I've signed up to the Patreon, and I literally just forgot about it. And then I think they emailed or they uploaded every single video all in one go. So I got like 20 emails of all their videos, and I clicked it. I was listening to it while I was packing corals. So so I've seen one now.
So the one that they did one the other day that was about there was a DIY guide on how to make an acclimation box.
Yeah.
And they're much bigger than this one. So you can make it whatever size you want, and it's DIY, can't you? But it's the only thing I didn't like about it was it rests on top of your tank, and I specifically want magnets. I much prefer that because then you don't have to worry about whether the cover sits flush and all that sort of stuff. So and I've got a weir 3/4 around the tank, so it's not ideal. But there's a DIY one. I did look the other day at the Serious Reef stuff. Still, almost all of their videos are showing as members only, and I do wonder if they're only ever going to be members only. I assumed members or patrons would get advanced access, but I think actually they're all going to be members only.
They put a
Well,
lot of
most,
effort into them.
yeah, and to be fair, it's I think it's probably worth funding it if you're
Yeah.
really into it. But I just assumed that over time they'd become they'd be on YouTube, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they will. But yeah, so that's my exclamation box. That I'm just kind of like, I mean, yeah, I suppose it's better than nothing, but I wish it was bigger. I wish it was bigger.
I had an acclamation box once where it was great, perfect, but the lid was on a hinge, and when the lid went underwater, it floated. so,
So I did wonder that.
So it was virtually useless because, like, yeah, well, it wasn't useless, but I had to keep it with magnets at the top of the tank so that the lid wouldn't open. And I put a fish, one of the angelfish somehow managed to get out of it. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So,
well, so this is solid acrylic lid. So I did wonder. I think that'll drop. I don't think it'll float, but I did wonder the same. And actually, when the 3D printed coral islands that I sell on Etsy, when I first made them, I was just like, they're one of the most expensive things for me to make because they use so much filament.
Yeah.
And when I first made them, I was like, I don't need to use that much filament, so I didn't make them rock solid. And you put it in, it just floats to the top. So they have to be completely solid, no air in between them or whatever. So, but I think this will be fine. I don't think that will float. But there is also the instructions say to build it like this, but there's a little hole there and a little nubbin on the end there that it comes with a little clip that you could put that it sort of switches, it locks in place, and it would physically block the lid from opening. But you'd have to screw it in every time you did that. So I don't think that's necessary. And I think, touch wood, that lid won't float. But yeah,
sometimes the flow also opens it. So like the flow from your power heads open it.
I guess the answer, if that does happen, is to have it so that the lid is above the water level.
Yeah, that's what I did. That's how I did it.
I was going to say I'd put something heavy on it, but then if you're putting something heavy on it, the magnets are going to struggle. So I don't know.
You've just reminded me of something, actually. So can I interject just quickly?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
You know what you said about the 3D printed islands that you were doing?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're making them with is it PETG, PETG? Yeah, like correct. The filament, which is safe to
reef
go.
Safe, yeah.
Yeah, reef safe. Yeah. So originally, when I had the frag racks made for the coral farm 4 years ago, the guy didn't do a proper job. Let's put it that way. So, in fact, to be honest, he didn't even complete the order. He just disappeared. So,
yeah.
Anyway, the issue was that he made all the legs with PLA, and he also didn't do the infill properly. So they floated. So the racks, you put them in the tank, and they would just fall off. So I asked them to redo them properly. He never finished doing it. Anyway, they've been there 4 years now. There is a reason you use PETG or PETG. I'm not sure how it's They were PLA. I didn't know they were PLA. They are now so there's nothing wrong. It hasn't caused an issue for the corals or anything. They are incredibly brittle that you can literally just put a very light pressure on them.
Yeah.
And they just crumble now. So I've gone through and replaced all of them with the proper ones. Obviously, I've got a 3D printer myself now. But that it's funny because you can get away with it for 4 years. And I didn't even know there was an issue until all of a sudden the racks just started collapsing on their own.
You've mentioned that before because I'd always wondered if PLA was actually completely usable, but genuinely turns out it's not. So, it is short term, but you don't want short term; you want long term.
Yeah, I didn't realize I'd mentioned it before. It's only because it's almost like it's hit as a stage now where, like, before there was like 1 or 2 crumbling. Now it's like all of them have. They must have like this 4-year time span where they can survive. And now it's like you put any pressure on, I'm now replacing them all, so it doesn't matter anyway.
It's funny that's the problem with one of the problems with 3D printing stuff for your fish tank. Sometimes you'll make something and you'll be like, wicked, that'll be perfect. But if you don't test it, like if I hadn't tested those islands and I started selling them, people would be saying, well, they float. Come on. So you've got to test it. So sometimes it takes actually quite a long time. You can't just if you're making it for yourself, it doesn't really matter. If you're making it for to sell, you can't just churn it out and then be like, that'll be all right, I don't care. And you're going to make mistakes somewhere, because people use things differently and there's always going to be something different, but you got to test stuff at least.
People are saying that it's well, push button reef just says UV exposure possibly, but obviously it might be. I don't know, but it's obviously under the tray. They're all under the trays in the dark. So for me, it's more likely something to do with the water, which is doing it. But I've had loads of ICPs done and everything over the years. I haven't seen any noticeable difference, but like they are so like I think I found one yesterday, but it's like they're so soft now. Like I'm not sure what to compare it to, but it's probably got the consistency of like crisps where you can just crack and eat. Like that's how strong they are.
Yeah.
So very slight pressure.
So John Wright suggests a cable tie to keep the lid down, which is a really good idea. Actually, I'd have to drill a hole because there's no hole for a cable, but you could drill a cable tie size hole on the lid and on the side.
Yeah, but feeding them becomes an issue because you want to be able to get in.
That's true. There are little feeding holes on the top, but I don't think you could even fit a cube of frozen. It. Maybe you could, but you're right. You want ready access, wouldn't you? Maybe I don't know. I'll see if it doesn't lift up, no problem. And I don't have massive flow in my tank, so.
If you can put a cube in there, put the cube for all the fish in the box because I'm not sure what it is, but it sucks out the flow, causes like a suction effect, so it pulls the food out of the holes.
Yeah.
So,
okay. I'm sure there's some science behind that, but okay. And so the other thing I bought, obviously, buying stuff is I think this was on the Serious Reefs video as well. They talked about I said last week about this was on Dmitry Tumanov, the treasure corals. He had a really good video with some really interesting aqua keepers, and they talked about how if you I've just gained 100 subscribers.
I was like, what is that noise?
I know. So they talked about how nori is a good source of iodine. So instead of dosing, but if you feed nori, you won't have such low iodine or whatever. You're effectively dosing iodine by feeding nori. And they talked about the two little fishes, Julian sprung pouch feeder specifically. So I bought one of those. I bought a few, and this is you're just going to laugh at me for this, but I bought a few nori feeding type things in the past, and I've never been happy with them. And this might be the one, partly because it comes with a magnet. Oh, magnets! I love magnets. So that makes it nice and easy. But also, it's got a little pouch, so you just separate the mesh thing there. You put the nori in the middle, and then bosh.
Not for me.
Not for you.
What's wrong with it? So I do use one of Julian Sprung's algae clip options. So the other option that he provides, which I like that. All you do, you get the sheet. So you know how the tanks can like sometimes pull the sheet out.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it becomes a problem. What I do is I get the sheet and I fold it into a real thin line, and then put it in the clip like that, and then they can't pull it out.
Okay.
And it's much more difficult for them to like get to it because obviously it's really compact, and I just leave it in there all day, and that works. And I literally put like half a sheet in at a time, so it definitely works.
Yeah, okay.
But I think that looks ugly. I'll be honest. I don't like the look of it.
I mean, they all look ugly. To be fair, it does look a bit, but I don't plan on keeping this in the tank. But the trainers get so lazy.
Second, we can add Julian to the list now of people we've offended.
People you've offended. I haven't offended him.
I've met Julian a couple of times actually. I like Julian, so he's a very knowledgeable man.
He is. Did you see there was a photo of him on Reef Builders the other day?
Yeah, he had a mullet. Yeah, I know. I know.
And they made t-shirts with a photo of the mullet. It's very funny.
Yeah.
And mullet is especially funny if you're British because no one has a mullet over here, whereas it's more common in the States, I think. But anyway, so there we go. So that was the other thing I bought, and I've not used either of them yet, obviously. But I'm really excited about that the nori clip because I always want to feed nori. I just get really lazy, and I know how easy it is, and that might not make a difference. That might just be another 30 quid I'm throwing away.
It won't make a difference. I am 99% sure it will not make any difference to you.
Yeah,
because it's more time consuming to take it out and put the try and get it into the mesh sheet. So I think you won't use that. I reckon you'll probably go back to a clip with a suction cup.
I don't use them anyway. I just won't feed it if that's the case. But anyway,
in the coral farm, I get a sheet of it. I dip it into the water for like 10 seconds, take it out of the water, and put it on the ledge, and we'll leave it there for about 30 seconds, and it just absorbs the water. And I literally just do that. I grab the sheet and just do that in every tank.
Rub your fingers together.
Yeah, and it floats around, and the fish eat it, and it. Like, sure, you can use a specific feeder, but it works just as well.
So Les is taking the mick at me for spending 30 quid on an algae clip, which is fair. And it was, how much was it exactly? £28.49. And actually, that was the one thing when I went to look for it, I was like, I'm definitely going to get it. Brilliant. And then I saw the price. I was like, oh, God, no.
Yeah.
And so I sat on it for a few days. I kept going back to it. And eventually I was like, oh, go on then.
It's the magnet, which is expensive.
Yeah, probably.
Because
some magnets are well expensive.
No, I know. But it's the same with the clip, because I think my one was like £17 or something. And I was like, you can get these for like £1. So how can what's the difference? The only difference is that it's magnetic rather than a suction cup. Yeah. So but it's really, really useful, because with a magnet you can put it down in the tank, and then you can put it up in the tank, and then you don't have to put your hands in. So
the suction cup will pop off, and then it's just God, I hate suction cups.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We really do have some like first world problems, don't we?
I know, yeah. But there we go. I no longer have those first world problems. But that's the end of me. So we're going to go on to member questions now.
Okay.
A couple of them are about lights. So you're going to love this, Ryan.
I'll just zone out for the next couple of minutes.
No, don't zone out. First one then is from East Coast Reefer. Hi, Steve. Who says, would be, this is specifically about the light on the thumbnail, the Red Sea light. Would be interesting if you get to try any. The spectrum looks to be a bit wider, but I expect they will be very blue. They seem very expensive for the coverage, especially compared to an ATI Straton Pro. So I'll come on to the specs and that sort of stuff in the news. The only thing I thought with that was that it said expensive compared to a Straton Pro. Straton Pro is an expensive light. It's not saying it's a bad light. It's not. I'm not saying it's too expensive, but I looked up the equivalent one. How much was it? So the most wattage of any of these Red Sea ones is 170 watts.
Yeah.
And there's the Straton, the lowest power Straton is 165 watts. So they're basically the same. Yeah. And watts isn't a great comparison, but roughly the same. The Straton is £1,000. And the Red Sea is 600 or 650 or something like that. So I actually think the HI Straton is a really expensive light. You might find that you'd actually, if you were setting up with Acros or whatever, you might find that you use fewer Stratons than Red Seas. I don't know, but I think they're roughly comparable in terms of claimed coverage, spread. But I actually think the Straton is really expensive light.
I cannot comment because I don't even know what it is. As I know it's a light, but I don't know who makes it or anything.
I tried for you, Steve. He doesn't care.
No.
The Straton. So the Straton, it's not my cup of tea, but it looks really smart. It's not my cup of tea. ATI.
Yeah, I know which one it is now. Yes, it's that tile, isn't it?
Yeah, your big panel. So for the right person, they don't do shimmer, so I don't want it. Basically, that's the only reason. But they look really smart, and they're big, physically big, so you get good physical coverage. And it's all well and good having lights with good lenses that give really good spread. You can't beat physical coverage.
Yeah.
So they do that really well. So they're kind of a different purpose, and I think they're probably a bit more niche. I think you won't get many newbies buying an ATI Straton, whereas you would get newbies buying a Red Sea or a Radion or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's more niche stickheads who would like the HI Stratons, but it gives more of a kind of a flat look because of the way. But yeah, push button Reef. We'll move on mine. I'll spare you. I did try him, Steve. I promise. I tried to get him going. Push button Reef says, as we're talking LEDs, sorry, this week, do you have any thoughts on the HI Straton Pro?
I can confirm I have no thoughts on it.
I'm thinking of getting a couple. I think they're brilliant for the right person. They're fantastic in the same way the Philips Coral Care is brilliant for the right person. Yeah. And again, they're big units, so they give you really good physical coverage. But they're just not to my cup of tea. I prefer the look of the smaller puck lights. This is the problem, right? Because everybody, what you want is lots of physical coverage, but they don't look as nice as the little Radions or Kessels or whatever. Little single puck lights. So you've pros and cons, but I don't personally like them. But for the right person, they're brilliant. And ATI are a really well-respected company. They know what they're doing. So I've never used one, but I'd be surprised if it's rubbish, especially at that price.
They did all the bulbs, didn't they? That was everyone was using their bulbs.
Sun panel, T5,
T5s, yeah.
I suspect, and on that point, if you're the Spectrum type, and I've not checked, but I would imagine that the ATI Straton has got a pretty sweet Spectrum. So if that floats your boat, check first, because I haven't looked. But
there are no facts here.
I would bet money that the ATI Straton Pro has a very good Spectrum.
I feel like people no, it's not that. I feel like Charles just said Ryan couldn't care less. You're losing it. That's not true. I'm doing well so far. It's usually near the end of the live stream where I start to flag with regards to equipment. But at the moment, I'm still on focus.
Well, we move on from lights, which is good news.
Okay.
Tomo Bishbosh says, "Evening both. I've got a question about when I can add some coral to my tank. I'm interested to see what you say.
You're buying it from me right now."
I've got a 125 litre Red Sea Max Nano. pH is 8. KH is 8.5. I paused to see if there was a reaction from you then.
I'm actually writing down what you're saying just in case I miss something.
Can I add some soft corals such as Zoas or GSP? I've looked around some videos. Some videos say wait till coralline algae starts to grow. I wouldn't be surprised if I've said that in the past. I'm dosing KH daily to keep it at 8.4 at the moment. Tank is 3 weeks old. I want to make sure I'm not jumping in and jumping the gun and rushing by adding the corals. Any help would be appreciated.
You say it was 8 weeks old?
3 weeks.
Oh, 3 weeks. I mean, that is quite young for a tank. But you're going to wait from do you want to go with your response first, or shall I go with my response?
I want to hold back. I won't edit my response. I will tell you exactly what I'm going to say, but I want to hear what you say first.
Okay. So people ask me this question all the time. Look, some people can add corals on day one of a brand new tank. It is possible to do. That is not the recommended thing to do. I'm not telling you to do this. Some people can do that. As long as your parameters are correct and you have nitrate and phosphate, it is possible to do. It sounds like you're probably relatively new to reefing. I would not be doing that. I would wait longer, in my opinion, than 3 weeks to put the corals in. And have you even cycled the tank in that time, or I suppose you probably put a bottle of bacteria in? Yeah, there's a whole range of different things. Did you use live rock when you started this tank? But I would say you need to wait longer. Personally, I would get used to just feeding the fish, get a bit of nitrate, a bit of phosphate, and give it a go. Green star polyps are not hard to keep, same as xenia and stuff like that. But the thing that will kill them is not enough nutrients. Yeah. So that is my opinion.
So the similar to me basically then. So the GSP thing and the coralline algae thing, I know I've said that in the past. Might have said on videos, who knows? That is a good indicator generally, and it's a rough guide. But you might find you don't get any coralline for 6 months.
And you might, if you don't put it, it doesn't materialize of nowhere. It has to come in on something.
Yeah, this is very true. And the other thing with that, I think the reason people say that is because if your tank can support coralline growth, coralline is a calcareous, I think is the word, calcareous algae, as in it uses calcium. Yeah. So if your tank can support something that uses calcium to grow, then it can support a coral that uses calcium to grow. Yeah. Soft corals don't use, well, certainly not in the same way as stony corals. They don't have a stony calcium-based skeleton, so that's not quite the right. That's a false equivalence, basically. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad idea. And it's the reason I said you're roughly the same as me is because if it was me, and I'm not, this is not advice. This is a do.
I know what you're going to say.
If it was me, I would probably put something in day one. That's partly because I've got access to corals that I can just be like, whoop, pop them in, and if they don't do well, I can move them on. I would put corals in day one, and it's not going to die, even if there was ammonia. You shouldn't put it in with ammonia. It's better not to. But nonetheless, I would actually do it from day one. But I think waiting a month or two, because when the first couple of months, your parameters are just all over the place, and there's stuff going on that you don't see or you don't test for that is all over the place. There's stuff that's fighting for space on your sand and everywhere. It's all a bit unstable, and things don't don't get on well. So if you've got a coral in there, there's every chance that it might start sulking. You don't know why, and it's not because your nitrate and your phosphate isn't right, which is probably the most likely thing, but it might be because of other weird biological stuff that's going on that you don't know about.
Sounds to me like a similar situation that do you remember when people were saying, well, they probably still are, they're going, I don't worry about alkalinity, I monitor my pH and like I keep like those sorts of things. If you've been in the hobby for a long time, you can do, in my opinion, go crazy, do whatever you want, to experiment. If you're relatively new and you want an easy thing, just slowly but surely, start with some fish, feed the fish, get used to having some fish and doing the water changes, then put the coral in later. I used to add one fish and one coral every month, and that's because when I first started, that's what I could afford.
Yeah.
And I will be honest with you, that was one of the best tanks I ever had, like in terms of like ease of going. I started with all live rock because back then you could pick up cheap, and it was from a tank breakdown. But there's no rush in doing this. The people that are in this long term, well, as it goes without saying, the people that are in this long term are in it long term. But what I mean, if you rush, you get it wrong, and if you get it wrong, you get out of the hobby pretty quick. Is what usually happens.
This is true. So he said that his nitrates are 2 parts per million, and nutrients is his big worry, which is the right thing to be looking at. Didn't realize I needed to test for phosphate. Oh wait, pH is phosphate, which I don't understand. PO4 is phosphate.
Yeah.
And you've said that your pH was 8. If your phosphate is 8, you've got problems.
Okay, but you will grow xenia.
You'll grow algae. But so I think probably the better advice is just leave it for a little bit, just to chill out. Have some fish in there, get a couple of snails and some hermits or whatever.
And get used to testing. Like get used to how you get a feel for your tank. Basically,
it's also easy to when you test as well, because you'll go online and you'll see that the parameters you want are X, Y, and Z, and you test and your parameters are more or less there. You're like, great, but actually with a new tank in particular, a week later they are not necessarily going to be. They might be all over the place. Who knows? And there's some, you get weird stuff all the time, so probably best to hang off, to be honest. And if you do think, oh sod it, I'm going to do it, don't get too disheartened if the coral dies in a few weeks.
But also don't get overconfident if it doesn't.
Yeah,
just because green star polyps doesn't die doesn't mean everything's not going to die.
No, indeed. Yeah, one swallow doesn't make a summer.
Yeah.
And we've got a super chat from Reef Ed. Cheers, Ed. He says, "What's up, guys? Looking forward to the Reef to the Gen 2 Reef led reviews. Maybe Dork will get one on his G2." I thought he was going to be saying that looking forward to more chat about the Reef leds, which is Ryan's kryptonite, but there will be a little bit in the news. It's
not going to be a review. It's more going to be just informing me of what we're talking about today, I assume.
Well, they're not even out yet, so no, it's not. Yeah, I don't have one. Right, and Tom says, appreciate the info. I won't jump the gun. I don't want to ruin anything in the hobby. Just wanted a bit of colour. Yeah, loving the Midas bloody cool.
That's a great fish for first fish. Most people start with clownfish, don't they?
But totally. Yeah, I did.
It's a far more interesting fish, I think.
That's true. Yeah, they're cool. I love them. That's a really nice tank. So Tom, I met Tom at Aqua. I'm pretty sure. And he was looking at setting up a tank then. He's been researching this for a while. So he seems the diligent type that will actually, will succeed.
Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know who Tom is as well. I think I met him as well.
His name's Benny, of course. Bish Bash Ash says, any Evergrow LED owners out there thinking they would be cheap way of lighting a 6-foot tank? The problem with Evergrows, so they're not actually that cheap anymore. Secondhand is definitely the way to go with Evergrows. The trouble with them vis-a-vis a 6-foot tank is that I think the longest unit is 4 or 5 feet. So you end up with, and the spread isn't very good. What I wanted with Evergrows was I had a 4-foot tank and I wanted a 4-foot unit. And then they're fantastic, but the spread isn't that fantastic. It doesn't really matter if you've got like a narrow scape in particular. It's not the end of the world, but you can't get a 6-foot one. So you'd end up getting a 4-foot one and then mounting it really high, and it still wouldn't give you the spread at the end. And so personally, I wouldn't do it, but they are really good, and I've loved my Evergrows. Had them for a couple of years. combining them with a Kessel. Oh, that was sweet.
You're
The
killing
control
me
is
here.
terrible. Sorry,
You're killing
we'll
me.
move on.
Look,
Sorry,
I
I'm
need.
getting excited.
We gotta get through the main topic first. You can't start early.
I know. God, so I get. Why do I get so excited? It's
I
light.
don't know. It's weird.
What's wrong with me?
For me,
Right.
it's like a box that sits above the tank that produces light, and it comes on and it comes on and it goes off at certain times, and that's it.
Okay. Well, we'll move on in that case. So, I was about to do the news, but no, it's actually per sturgeon earth fish of the week first.
Yeah, we'll go fish of the week.
Right.
I picked a fish which I don't even know quite how to pronounce this name. I believe it's a Carberii anthias that I've decided to go for. And the reason I decided to go for it is because one of my customers bought one this week, or actually they bought a group of 3 of them. And I just thought that they would be an interesting fish to show. I often show fish that I have had or am interested in. I'm going to start showing fish that other people are interested in.
Yeah.
Just because, like, it's very limited to what I'm interested in, if you see what I mean. Where what I've started to realize, when you start to sell to other people buy all sorts of weird things, eels and triggerfish and like things I would never imagine keeping. So these are not an impossible anthias to eat. Not eat. Don't eat them.
Really easy to eat. Yeah.
They're not an impossible anthias to keep, whereas some anthias are like very, very difficult to keep. I think is it the purple queen ones, which are meant to be like particularly difficult.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Is it either queen or princess? Something purple, something.
Yeah, something like
that. You can see I'm not particularly interested in anthias, but they're not as easy as they're known as wreck fish, or you can pronounce the name.
Squammies. Yeah. And the other one I had. So I used to be obsessed with anthias, and I just got bored of them after, because they're a shoaling fish in your tank is just the coolest thing in the world, isn't it? But I soon found that anthias are a pain in the ass, because it means you've got to feed them quite regularly, which means then you've got to manage nutrients in your tank more than you would do otherwise. They bicker and fight anyway. The anthias I had was longfin anthias, resplendent. Also, they're known as. I can't remember the scientific name. Who cares though? It's science, right? No one cares about science. So they were supposedly one of the easy ones to keep, and I had 7 of them, and I found that for about 18 months, they were fine. I fed them quite regularly. There were no problem. The only thing with them was they completely lost their color. They were really nice, bright colors.
Yeah.
Pink anthias with, I think they had yellow as well. I forget now. And they just really faded. They looked really boring after a few months. And then I can't remember. I feel like I reduced feeding just generally on the tank, and they started to pick at each other and pick each other off one by one. Those 2 were probably connected. So it's probably my fault, but I just don't like anthias, because anthias and chromis are the same. They don't shoal. They don't shoal tight.
No, I know.
They swim close-ish to each other. But like when you see them in the shop, they're all like, "Oh my god, what's going on? I don't know where this is. This is scary." And so they're all tightly close together. When you put them in a tank, they're like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm in a reef. I can chill out. There's no danger. I don't need to swim next to this dickhead." And they spread out.
They're definitely one of those fish as well, which I think would benefit from a varied diet. It's well known that anthias need multiple feedings like throughout the day, even if it's like 2 for the wreck fish. I literally feed them. I actually only feed mine once a day, to be honest, and I've had them for years.
Literally, didn't know wreck fish. Okay.
Yeah, they're in the coral farm. And they came from a tank breakdown, and they've just been in there for ages. I found it interesting when you said to me earlier that they fought each other, because that's something I don't think people know. I think people think that, chromis are known for, like, you get 10 of them and then you eventually get 3 and they'll like live together. I didn't know anthias were the same.
So I'm pretty sure that happens just generally. Those are the only anthias I've ever had. So don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Blah blah blah. But I bought 1 male and the rest were females, and I'm pretty sure, and this was probably 3 or 4, 5 years ago, maybe now, but I'm pretty sure one of the females turned to a male as well. So that was probably part of what happened. But they just pecked it. They started withering away. And I can't remember if I reduced feeding when they started with. I can't remember the order of it, so it might not have been that. But they started just dying off basically, one by one. I'd come back home and I'd find one dead, and then a week later, same, another one dead. And they had sunken bellies, some of them, so they were obviously, it wasn't enough food was part of it. And maybe that's when they're not getting enough food, then they fight more. I don't know, but I found that they just picked each other off. And even I had a few that stayed around for ages after all of those issues, and they just hid in the rock work all day long. It's like, you're boring, and when I do see you, you're plain and you've lost all your colour. What's the point, you know?
Yeah, but Antias have never been for me, but lots of people like them. I think they're a relatively like popular fish.
But the reason I didn't have proper success with them, is because I wasn't feeding them properly. And I suspect that their colour was to do with me not meeting their dietary needs properly as well. So, you know.
That's what I was going to say. I definitely think that they're one of the fish that not just benefits from multiple feedings, but a variety of different small like foods that they can fit in their mouth.
Yeah.
Rather than just mysis. Multiple feedings of mysis is probably not going to be the same as like multiple feedings of mysis and plankton and copepods and things like that.
Yeah, I did try with lots of different foods, and I used to buy frozen copepods for them because supposedly that's good. But just anything small, any small frozen food like that, you put it in the tank, it just goes boff, just goes everywhere.
Yeah,
and I feel like 10% of it gets eaten, and so it's just like, well, I'm just pouring in phosphate. So I never like that. But then these are all reasons why.
It probably all get like
maybe
the stuff that's on the rocks and stuff like that just gets eaten by smaller things. When you
I just felt like it went down the overflow a lot, but I didn't have a proper look. But basically, all of these things tell me that this Anthias or Chromis are not the right fish for me for various reasons. Yeah. So it doesn't mean you can get them. Just if you're like me, don't bother. And they're expensive. They're like 40 quid each, and you need 7 or 8, 9. You know.
I can't remember who it was. I was showing someone Anthias, and they didn't know about fish, and they went, that just looks like a goldfish with eyeliner, because they have like a little like bit of purple on them, don't they? Now I disagree. I don't think they look like goldfish, but other people that don't know what they are think they do.
Wreckfish are known as saltwater goldfish, aren't they? But I've every time I see that, I think, no way. Wreckfish are stunning fish.
Yeah.
Like, they're not for me, but they look amazing.
They're just the same colour.
Not really.
Well, kind of.
Goldfish are boring orange. Like,
yeah.
No offense to any goldfish watching. Anyway, that's the prestige reef fish of the week that we apparently both don't like. What is the purse sturge reef coral of the week?
I'm going for again in the don't release it. Don't
show it. I thought you were about to say it.
In sticking with the theme of again things that people have bought this week, but also things that I would never ever buy myself. I'm going for a blueberry gorgonian. So these are non-photosynthetic. I believe they're They definitely need to be fed. I'm 99% sure they're non-photosynthetic.
Blueberry gorgonians are non-photosynthetic.
Yeah. Now I wouldn't recommend anyone buys these. I'll be completely honest with you. Now, do you remember a little while ago I told you I had a customer who buys the weirdest stuff? Like it's like if it's something that no one else wants, he wants it, and he has a whole tank full of these sorts of corals. So I know that there's no guaranteed success with him, but I know that he is someone that will have better success than other people. So that's why,
because he puts in the effort.
Yeah, I literally said to him, I would not sell this coral to anyone else. Like that, if I didn't know, if you said to me, Ryan, can you get that coral? I'll go, Alex, you don't want that coral.
No,
quite right. You just don't want it. Whereas he's got a whole tank full of all these weird corals, and like he seems to be able to keep them alive. So
the thing is, if I bought that coral for a week, I'd feed it like a target feed it like 3 times a day, and I'd be taking photos of it, and it'd be amazing. And then the next week I'd be like, oh, just put some mysis in there, you can get that, which it wouldn't. So it would be. I'm not cut out for a coral like that.
I need to see. I've actually been to his house. I've seen his tank before. I need to see like an updated version of it, because like the amount of just weird stuff that he buys from me, it'll be interesting. I haven't seen an updated picture of the entire tank full of weird stuff. He's got like blue sponges. Have you ever seen those blue sponges in shops that you just think, oh, like no one buys those? He's got one, and it's like if you type blue sponge in, you'll see what comes up. It's like a real bright like blue color, and he's got that, and it like grows out of control. Yeah, like show everyone what it is. No, not that.
That's what comes up. A literal
blue
sponge
coral.
Blue sponge. Oh yeah, that sort of thing. Okay.
Yes.
Blue
Yeah.
sponge
So
coral.
it grows really well in his tank. So he has
Yeah.
already
Okay.
thought
Oh
of,
yeah. No, I have seen them. They're really cool, actually.
yeah. So I need to ask him for an updated picture just to I don't think he listens to the live stream, but it might be one of the people where I go, you want to film an interesting tank? This might be one for you to give him a call.
Just remembered a second ago as well. I'd not messaged your mate Pete, who you gave me
well,
his number about.
He listens, so you can apologise to him here. So
I've been apologising every week for the last like 10 months, so it will happen eventually.
Hopefully, he knows it's not me, and he is still listening.
Yeah. Every now and then I remember, and I'm like, oh, I'll message him, and then I go and do something else, and I forget, and then I remember on the live stream.
I'm going to message Peter. Then I always keep like a little list of things to look at later.
I need a week off now. I've got too much stuff on, so it's not going to happen this week. But I will do it. I promise. I'll do it.
So,
all right. So that is the Prestige Reef Fish of the Week and the Prestige Reef Coral of the Week, which Ryan means
the news.
Right, we're going to start with some Ryan-friendly news before we move on to the other stuff.
You mean interesting news then?
Yeah. Would you like to go to Reef Dork Denver?
Yeah. As in, I don't know how big it is compared to some of the other ones I've been to, but it's just I'm assuming it'll be similar to Macna and Reefapalooza.
Well, you can't because it was this weekend.
Okay.
It's not loading. Hang on, my internet is being slow. But yeah, it was this weekend, and there's not been any. I've not seen any updates on the Reef Builders website because they have been, I'd imagine, busy.
Yeah.
Because it's a Reef Builder show. But I think they'll probably do a write up maybe in the next week, so maybe we'll talk about it more next week. And I haven't been on Instagram, so I've not seen. Well, I've been on Instagram. I've not seen any posts if they put it on there or whatever. But Reef Dork Denver was this week, and I don't know how big it is, but it looks they had quite a lot of talks and that sort of stuff. Julian Sprung, Salem.
I saw the size of the room. It was like a big room in a hotel. So I don't think it's not like a small thing in like a village hall.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, I think it's a decent sized show. But yeah, so that was this weekend, so you can't go. But there we go. And do you remember that massive aquarium in a hotel in Germany that exploded?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I don't know. How big was it? I can't even. It was like thousands of gallons, and it popped and went bang basically. Well, it has been replaced. This was the this is on reefkeepingnews.com, by the way. This was the original aquarium. So that's a saltwater tank. There's a big fish tank.
Yeah.
And there was a lift in the middle of it. So that was the original aquarium. It popped and just ruined the hotel, basically. And I think the hotel has been shut this whole time.
It blew out the front doors of the hotel. The power of it literally just ripped off the front of the hotel.
Yeah. So really bad accident. But the hotel has reopened. It's the Radisson in Berlin. Have you ever been to Berlin?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Cool city. I would recommend it. Berlin and Munich.
You would think that I would know if I'd been there, but I have been to some places, and I've been to Nuremberg because that's where the
trials.
That's where I went to Interzoo. That's where Interzoo is.
Okay.
So
I'd say I need to do more of Germany, but Munich in particular I really like Munich. Anyway, whatever. Berlin is a cool city. Go there if you haven't been already. They've replaced it.
Yeah. And
they've replaced it with a tree.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it wasn't another fish tank.
Which I get. I mean, they're not going to do the same again. And so this is a living tree, they've called it. 24-meter tall living tree is a better photo. The only thing because they've just set it up now, all you can see is wood, which I suppose is true of most trees, to be fair. But there's just these, it looks quite cool, nice design, but there's these wood panels with a few plants or whatever they are, trees, I don't know, on it. And I think the idea is that over time this will grow out. Probably won't take that long. It will grow out and be covered and just look like a tree. It
looks like those trees, those purple trees in Singapore. You know, like have you seen the big trees in Singapore?
Purple tree.
No, it's like they're like man-made trees. They're massive.
Yes, I know the one you mean. Yeah. These sorts of things.
Described that very well, didn't I?
No,
I've been there.
Cool.
That was cool. I've been on those ramps, walked around it. and they have like this light show in the evening. I really like Singapore, actually.
Okay. Well, back to Berlin.
Yeah.
If you want to go and see this living tree, it is there. What there were some details on it that Reefing News quoted. It said this is from this is from Radisson Blue. They said, or Radisson, it was one of the hotel's most remarkable features is the living tree vertical garden in the nearly 1,000 square meter lobby, says the Radisson. Towering 24 meters high and 20 meters wide, this lush installation is adorned with nearly 2,000 plants, creating an ever-changing visual spectacle. We'd all like to mark our own homework. But it does look cool, to be fair. State-of-the-art irrigation system. Yeah.
Look,
but there
no
you
one, like, people walk into that hotel originally and will go, wow, look at the fish tank and the fish and stuff like that. No one is going to walk in and go, wow, look at those plants. It doesn't have the same impact.
No, this is true. It will be cool, but it's not as cool as a big fish tank.
Yeah.
Saltwater fish tank. Okay, that might be the end. Oh, actually, yeah, there's one more piece of news I'll do before the boring stuff for you, and that is Etsy news, Ryan. I've had to stop selling to Northern Ireland and Europe, unfortunately. There was a rule change recently, and because of Brexit, we can't. I can't sell to Europe and Northern Ireland anymore, which is a real shame. Yeah.
What was the rule change?
I can't remember what it's called, but it basically means it's like a safety thing, and you have to meet certain criteria in order to sell in Europe, and in order to meet that criteria, it would cost quite a lot of money. I wouldn't even know where to start, but everybody basically on Etsy has stopped selling to, or most people has opted out selling to Europe and Northern Ireland, which is a shame because you guys are, we're Britain, Northern Ireland. Europe, we're brothers.
No, I know. It's just crazy. Like everywhere is suffering at the moment, and they're not making it easier to make money, are they? They're making it harder to make money.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this actually, and this is coming later in the news. eBay has apparently changed their mind.
I completely forgot. Yes, I'm glad you said that. They have.
You only reminded me when you said about Etsy. Yeah.
So actually, that's the other news is that eBay has reversed the live stream last week was that eBay was banning the sale of live animals. They've reversed that now. It was funny. Someone commented like a day or two after the live stream saying that it had been reversed. And there was something about the way they phrased the comment. I was like, I don't trust you.
No, I know. And then you start to see it more. I've not seen it officially on eBay's page yet, but other people.
Exactly. But so I deleted that comment first time around because I was like, it just didn't feel right. So I deleted it because I was like, I don't want people to get misinformation. But then I saw a few other people say the same thing, and it's true.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, anyways. So they've reversed it. They've said we've listened to feedback and we reversed our decision. So now you can keep selling live animals on eBay.
I'm not sure if I'm happy or not with that. I don't know why. I didn't really have an opinion, if you see what I mean, last week. All I do know now is that last week was a waste of time. So I sat here for 2 hours talking about something that's not happening anymore.
So the thing that occurred to me more after the live stream was about how many small businesses rely on that actually. So and we talked a bit about that on the stream, but I think that's probably a good thing. But I don't really buy corals on eBay, to be honest. So I have done in the past, but rare.
I might consider trying it. I don't know if it's for me, if I'm honest.
You did sell on eBay, didn't you?
No, so I had corals listed like buy it now on eBay if you're searching for, yes, and it was collection only, and it was so that people could find my location, because it boggles my mind that people I've been doing this 4 years now, and people still don't book to come here. Do you know what's crazy? So I told Alex this already. I was at the doctor the other day. I was sitting in the waiting room. I was just going to get a blood test. And then a guy walks in, sat down next to me, and he went, "You're that fish guy, aren't you?" And it turned out that his partner actually watches, I think, the live stream. So he might actually be watching this now. I don't know. He's either live streams or the channel where he watches it. So it's not him himself who follows it, but he recognized me through that. Why did I go off on this tangent? There was a reason I went off on this tangent. Oh yeah. So he literally was 5 minutes from me. That's what I said. I said to him, Like, you only live 5 minutes from me. Why haven't you come to the farm? Because he told me that the corals turn up at the house all the time. I'm like, what do you mean corals turn up at the house all the time? You're 5 minutes away. So if you're listening, like, I don't live far away from you. Just book a visit.
Yeah, okay. It's worth it. It really is.
But yeah, so that's how I got into it. That's what I was using eBay for. People search for corals and then they look at nearest location because most people want to collect corals and see them in person. And it was basically an advertising thing for me. Now, obviously, after last week's live stream, I've removed all of my posts, which is now means I've now got to put them all back up if I want to. So, but people rarely bought off of it. It was more of they're going, oh, I see you've got this, because my website was on there as well.
Yeah, okay.
And then they were like, oh, I see there's a few other things I'm interested in, then they'll come collect. So yeah.
There you go. But yeah, so that is the eBay news. I completely forgot. I meant to put that on my list. I completely forgot. But yeah, they reversed their decision.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It's surprising that they would do, a big company like that would reverse a decision so quickly.
But yeah, and what unless they looked at it and went, wow, we just realized we're selling like a lot of these types.
But sure, if a company like eBay, and there are a lot of stupid people out there. Do you know one of the things that, so when I was a solicitor back in the day, there were, every now and then you come up against I only work for smallish firms, maybe medium size at a push. Every now and then you come up against one of the big boys, like one of the top 5 firms, and your instant reaction is, oh God, they must be all really brilliant. Oh God, they're scary lawyers. I bet they know everything really well. They don't know squat. They're no different to anybody else.
Right, I'll add them to the list.
Evershed, if you're asking. But every now and then you come across it and you'd be like, how do you not know that? Are you right? So you just get paid more because you blagged your interview, and it's what the point I'm making is surprising how big companies are not actually always that impressive. But what I was going to say is, with eBay, you would think that they would look into this and they would say, right, we're going to stop selling live animals. Let's just see, first off, how much money do we make from it? How many sales come through? How many people are we going to annoy? The basics. So for that, maybe they did do that and maybe they misjudged it. I don't know, but it's weird for them to change, to flip back straight away. You would think they would be like, this is a big decision. We're going to make the decision. We're going to stick to it. So to me, it's weird that they would do that and then 24 hours later, change their mind. Which is part of the reason I deleted that comment, because I was like, nah, that's weird.
So fish are sold on there. Like a lot of fish, I think, are sold. I'm just very, very quickly looking now. If you type goldfish in, there's like hundreds, like the live goldfish, there's hundreds of posts. So I don't believe they reversed it for coral. Like there must be some big fish people that complain.
Tiny, yeah. But you still, and there must be koi and all that sort of stuff on there. You would think that they must have thought about that. But
I'm assuming do they sell reptiles on there? Do you know?
They must do. Well, I don't know. But I just thought it was weird that they flipped and they reversed it straight away. That's a really weird thing for them to do, to make a big decision like that and then go, oh, actually, no, God, we didn't realize people wouldn't like it. You
don't seem to be able to buy reptiles, so I'm assuming it's things like bees and fish. So it's probably, because I thought about this when it said people complained. I thought, well, it can't be some of the little coral sellers that complained that have like shifted what eBay's thought. So
some dickhead selling frags out of his sub.
There must be some really big fish people or something out there, or bee people that have complained.
Who knows? Ricardo Carvalho, former Chelsea centre-back, has a question for us, Ryan. Okay. He was a quality player. Thanks for joining in, Ricardo. Nice of you to say hello. If you can recommend your other former Portugal teammates, get Ronaldo on the stream. That would be great. We'll have him as a guest. What are people's thoughts on using ChatGPT for reef keeping? Ryan, what are your thoughts on using ChatGPT?
What I do know is that when it was me versus ChatGPT, I beat it, didn't I? So it's not 100. It depends what you want from it. It's not 100% accurate, but it was
I wouldn't trust it as far as I can throw it.
Look, so actually, we asked it like 10 questions, and 9 of them it got right, and there was one it got right.
I forget. Some of it was pretty good. And to be fair, you can ask ChatGPT things, and it will get some stuff wrong. And you could ask on a forum or Facebook or whatever, and they might get something wrong. So it's not like the alternative is perfect. It's just that AI is very good at some things,
Yeah.
and there are even like basic entry level stuff. There are some things it's really good at. I just don't trust it at all because
You see, it's impossible to create a. I saw a video the other day. It cannot create an image of a glass of wine which is full because there are no images of glasses of wine that are filled to the brim on the internet. So no matter how many times you ask it, it cannot create it.
Yeah, okay. But it's just I just don't think you can trust it. It can go off on a tangent and give you really weird advice. So I would never ever use it. I would never recommend it.
I only use it to try and annoy it. I literally very so often I'll say, tell me a story that no one has ever thought of before. And then it's like it comes up with the craziest thing.
But this is a good point as well. Simon Veldhouse says ChatGPT doesn't get called out for wrong info. People on a forum will. Actually, that's not quite the point I thought you were going to make. It's pulling in information. I think this is how it works. It pulls in information from the internet. How do you know that information it's pulling in is correct?
Correct. That's
I'm sure
it takes it from the forums.
I'm sure it's better at identifying what information is correct and incorrect than your average person who's just getting into the hobby.
Yeah.
But it's just, I would never use it. I would find someone who knows what they're doing and ask them whether that's.
Do you remember what it got wrong?
No, on the stream, no.
Yeah, it was. We asked, what is the proper acclimation process or something? Or do you need to acclimate corals? Was what was the question that we asked it, and it came back saying yes, you do. Like, here is the things that you should drip, like acclimate them or whatever. But technically, you don't actually need to acclimate corals. So,
but that's not bad advice, I think.
No, I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad advice, but it is wrong.
Well, yeah, okay.
At the time, you put that question in there because you thought you could trick it. That was specifically the reason you put it in there.
Okay. I'm smarter than AI.
So
I'm not. But there you go. I just wouldn't touch it I wouldn't touch it with yours. Let's put it that way. But anyway, equipment use, Ryan. We're finally getting onto the good stuff. I'm going to do. There's one that's quite quick and one that's a bit take a bit longer. So I'll do the quick one first. Okay.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
It is. So Red Sea have brought out 2 new pieces of equipment, or are bringing out. They're not currently available. One of which is a return pump.
Yeah.
That is this one. There are various different sizes. I actually think they're reasonably priced. I didn't compare it to everything. I compared it briefly to the Ecotech Vectra. And it's much cheaper than the Ecotech Vectra.
Which Vectra? Is it the M1?
I compared it to the L2, but there are different. The large one, but there are different sizes that you would compare differently, and it's a lot cheaper. But then, I mean, if you were to buy a Jekod, and Jekod are really good for return pumps, the Jekod will be cheaper. So, you know, where do you pitch it? But for one of the premium brands, I thought it was reasonably priced. And the thing that you need to know about this is, so the 2 things that it says that are my key takeaways from the bump is I can't remember if they described it as virtually silent or very quiet or something like that. It was much quieter. So I had and I don't know if these are Sicce pumps. I had an old Sicce pump. I bought it secondhand, and it was really noisy, above like 50%. Or not really noisy, just hummed.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it, so I got rid of it. I thought that was good. I was like, maybe that's just because it's secondhand. But actually, I just think that's the way those pumps work. So these ones, and that's what the old Red Sea ones were based on. These ones are a different design. I presume they're still CJ, but I don't know. People taking the mick out.
I literally hate the comments. I'm doing so well. I'm saying yes. I'm nodding along. It was Les's comment, which actually made me laugh when he said, "See, people distract me. I read it because he said they're reasonably priced when you think a Nori clip is worth £30.
I don't think it's worth £30. I just bought it. But anyway, so I think these are from my key takeaway was that they're quieter, and also this time you don't have to have it connected to the app. You can just press a button on the thing and it will change the intensity. But actually, there are some benefits of having it connected to the app. I think that looks good. If it's quiet, and there's an if, because who knows, a company can tell you something's quiet. I mean, it's quiet. If it's quiet, then wicked. Sign me up. The lights, Ryan. Bear with me. We're going to get through this. We'll get through this together.
I have a question about the lights afterwards. So I'm
interesting. Well, I'll read off the stuff and I'll tell you, and you can tell me if I answer that question. So the first thing that's changed is the design looks a little bit neater, and annoyingly, my light up here is not the Red Sea, so I can't show you. But the design is a bit neater, a bit more modern. Who cares? Okay, but it is. There's also a clip-on visor, which I don't think there was before, which is 15 quid, which isn't too expensive actually. I don't have, so I have 4 of the Gen 1 Red Seas in my tank, and they're in my main tank, and the living room. I just realised I'm conscious I don't want to do an Elon Musk, so I'm going to be careful how I point. But the lights are up here. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that in theory, they should be giving me loads of glare, but I don't really get any glare off them. Or if I do, I'm used to it. I don't notice it. But anyway, you can get a visor if you do get glare off them. What else was there to tell you about? So across the range, there's a few different sizes. They do that. You now get 10 watts of extra power on all of them, which is
exciting.
That's exciting. It is exciting. Yeah. There's a wider spectrum as well. That's probably the most significant thing. So the Gen 1 is there and the Gen 2 is there. So it's still not a massive spectrum. And I would expect the ATI stratum we mentioned earlier to be much wider, but a wider spectrum. And that was one of the criticisms people had of the Gen 1 light, was that it was a very narrow spectrum. So it's a less narrow or more wide, whichever way you want to phrase it, spectrum. It has more white LEDs, which Red Sea say is great for photography, but I would also say it's great for fish, because you can run your tank you run your tank quite white for the fish.
Yeah, I do. Only the water box. Yeah.
It also has a photo mode. So you just press a button and it'll change it to settings that are really good for photography, which is appealing to nerds like me who like to take photos and videos of their tanks. It also has they've changed the way you adjust the color. So Kessel, and I'm not saying they've copied Kessel, but Kessel has a thing where you slide it up and down and make it blue or white. Yeah. Red Sea used to have, you set the blue channel and the white channel separately. Now they're doing the same as Kessel. Not saying they got the idea from Kessel. Looks a little bit like they did. And then they've got a bunch of templates that come with it. So you can just click it on and go, I want it to be X, Y, and Z template. You don't have to play around with the settings yourself. The prices, and this is the last thing I'll tell you, the prices, there's a 60 watt version, which is 270 quid, which is roughly equivalent to an AI Prime and slightly more expensive, but that's a good option because a lot of people who have small tanks will end up buying a bigger light like a Radion XR15, which is overkill. There's a medium version, which is 115 watts, which is roughly equivalent to a Radion XR15. That's 420 quid. And then there's a big version, which is 170 watts, which is roughly equivalent to a Radion XR30, albeit 20% of power or something. And that's 630 quid. So the small one is relatively affordable. The middle one is a tiny bit expensive, but about right. And the bigger one is a little bit cheaper than the competition. But it's hard to compare because they're all slightly different. Availability to be confirmed. No date. Well done for getting through it, Ryan.
So, well, I did well, didn't I? What was my question? Do we need new lights? I thought about this as soon as I saw the thing come up. I went, because I also got the email from Red Sea, and I just thought, I was growing corals perfectly well under my Radion Gen 4s. There's now Radion Gen 5s. There's now Radion Gen 6s, and
soon 7s, I bet.
Yes, I'm sure. And obviously, Red Sea have a light. And look, don't get me wrong. They compared. You can see there is some improvement compared to their last light. So they've taken what people probably didn't like and they've changed it and made it better. Great. But at what point is there do we stop innovating with regards to lights and we just go, look, we're done?
Well, this is exactly what the conversation I had with the chat and everybody about the AI, the new AI light. So actually, to the Red Sea light, I don't think there's anything groundbreaking, but there are a few upgrades that are reasonably significant compared to the Gen 1. Yeah. But ultimately, it's still going to grow your corals. Just don't, if your corals are growing fine, you don't need to get the Gen 2.
But that's why do companies put so much effort into incrementally improving? Are they expecting old people to buy new lights, or are they expecting
I think lights are one of the things that people replace fairly regularly. Supposedly, no one replace. If you buy a skimmer, and then you don't ever replace it. With lights, people like me replace them fairly regularly, and that's why Ecotech do it every 2 years, basically, because there's always.
Maybe I'm the odd one then, and I don't replace my lights.
That's I'm not saying everybody does. I don't know what percentage is, but supposedly that's why they do it. And lights are one of the sexier things you can buy and all that sort of stuff. So, but I think it's better than the previous generation, which is great. But at the same time, if you have a Gen 4 Radion, for example, which is now 6 years old, something like that,
maybe more
your
than
corals, maybe your corals will still grow. Okay,
that. Yeah.
they will still look nice.
They were
You
one of
don't
my
need.
favorite lights, the Gen 4 ones. I can't tell you why I liked them. I just remember liking them. Maybe it's
Yeah,
like a nostalgia or something.
yeah. You don't need the latest and greatest of anything. And the thing that came out of the chat the other week about when, in the context of the AI Hydra Edge, which is the new AI light, is that people were like, "Yeah, that's great and all, some nice developments, and there actually are some really good features in that light, particular. But I don't want a more expensive fancy light. I want a cheap light."
Yeah.
So it would be great. And I started thinking about this. So what would be really cool is if they brought out one of the big companies, Kessel, Radion, Red Sea, whoever, AI, brought out a cheap range, a budget range.
Yeah.
And all you really need, and I don't know what the expensive bits that you need to cut out are, but you don't need a Wi-Fi chip. You don't need a Bluetooth chip. Yeah, they're cool and everybody loves playing with their lights on the first week or whatever, but after that you don't bother.
Yeah.
So what you could have though is one that comes with 3 settings: low, medium, and high intensity.
Yeah.
So you put it low if you've got LPS, medium if you've got a mixed reef, high if you've got SPS, whatever. So all you've got one button, changes between low, medium, high, and then when you plug it in, it has a 12-hour light schedule. So it comes on at 10 in the morning, it goes off at 10 o'clock at night, it ramps up and down. So you don't get to adjust the schedule. You don't get to adjust the spectrum. It looks how it looks. It's white during the day, it's blue in the evening. It's got low, medium, and high power, and it's half the price. I don't know if that's possible, but just something basic like that. I feel like there'd be a good market for that, especially with newbies. Because if you're looking at a new tank and you're trying not to spend too much money, and you see an ATI Straton is £1,000, you're going to think that's crazy. Whereas if you saw an Ecotech Radion basic version that was 200 quid, you might think, ooh,
the company's going to pop up now called Budget Reefs.
Yeah.
And to produce everything that's reef related, but a discounted price with the things you don't need.
I've said on a number of occasions, someone should start a channel called the Budget Reefer. Someone who is into budget stuff. That wouldn't suit someone like me because I don't look for the budget side. But if it's that's something you're passionate about, do it, because there'd be a huge market for it. And there are loads of people who want budget stuff who don't want to spend a load of money. There's plenty of people who want to spend money, but there are loads of people who want cheap stuff. So so no, we don't really need more development, but you're going to get that. Companies always will progress to fancier stuff because it looks sexy and people will want to buy it.
But as you said, the people that make skimmers, they don't bring out a new skimmer every 2 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. As I said, I feel very differently about lights than you do. So maybe you like it that people bring out new lights every so often.
I do actually. I think it's good that there are developments, and particularly I think Spectrum has probably had a lot more focus over the last 5 years or whatever, and spread as well, which is really good. So it's good that we keep progressing. If the new Red Sea light is better than the last one, the new AI light has some really cool features.
Yeah, but are they better than all the competition? That's the question. Because then you are actually innovating. You're making something.
They've got to keep up with the competition, because if Ecotech keep bringing out better, so the Gen 5 in particular was kind of, I think that was a sweet spot. They'd nailed it at that point.
Yeah,
because the spread wasn't quite so harsh as the Gen 4. That is better, in inverted commas. It's not going to make the difference between good tank and bad tank. But then if Radion, Ecotech bring out a new light and an improved one, well, Red Sea have to as well, and Kessel have to. Actually, Kessel will never change it. They're much slower.
Yeah.
But people, and if there's an old design that's been around for years, people aren't interested in it. So it's like it's our fault as consumers, really. But there you go. Those are Ryan's thoughts on LEDs. We've got a few more. I'm flagging now. I'm
tired.
ready to wrap it up. But
whenever you're ready, I'm. You know me.
There's a couple of comments I'll pull out from the chat. Bristol Reef says, "What about disco mode? Do you remember there was that on the Gen 4 Radions? It had disco mode or lightning mode or something, and it's on
the Gen 5 as well. Do you know what it's for?
Okay. Just for showing off.
No, it's for something. It's something to do with the pucks, where I think sometimes they can get like stuck on a certain color, or something changes them. Like, you know how I'm not sure I'm describing this correctly. All I know is it actually has a purpose. There is definitely something that disco modes, I promise you, it's something to do with the pucks, like getting stuck on or the wrong spectra or something.
Oh, I see. But people use it, and
basically.
people use that though to be like, oh, look at this, what it does. Doesn't it look cool? You know,
it looks terrible.
it does look terrible.
Lightning mode is the other thing that I never ever put on any of tanks.
No, I hate that sort of thing. But that's faded out. I'm sure it's the EcoCheck Radeon Gen 4 had that, and I think they phased that out afterwards.
I don't know about the I don't know about the lightning mode, but with regards to disco mode, ironically, I literally put it on yesterday. I've not put it on for years. Like I couldn't tell you last time I put it on, but one of the Radeons was I turned them all off. Like, you know, when you are in like live mode where you can adjust them, I turned all of them off. One of them stayed on, and I thought, what are you doing? Like it was just this dim lighting. Put disco mode on, then they all turned off. Don't know why, but it's definitely something to do with that. I promise you.
Interesting. Okay, well there we go. But yeah, there we go. I think the innovation is good and is always going to happen. I think, and lighting is important, but it wouldn't hurt if companies brought out, or it'd be wicked if company brought out a basic model. And if you brought out a basic model that doesn't have a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi app or whatever, there'd be plenty of people who are like me, who'd be like, I want that. So you wouldn't lose all of your sales if you fancy one. But it's just there'd be an option for people who don't want to spend so much money.
Yeah.
There's my challenge to any lighting manufacturers listening. And there are companies like Nightcrew who make cheap lights. But it would be great if an established brand did that.
Yep.
Do it. And that concludes the news. And it's easy for me to say that because I don't know if there's no, I don't have to do it. I'm not the one who actually has to make the decision, invest all the research and all that sort of stuff. So just do it, make it happen. God, how hard is it? But there we go. Brian, you look like you're about to say something wise.
No. I started to Google why they have a disco mode. So
okay,
because I promise you, there's definitely a reason. Why would a lighting company put disco mode on? It has to have some purpose.
I'm sure it's just because it just looks like it just is. Cool isn't the right word, but spectacular, and people can go, "Oh look, ha ha ha," and then you never touch it again.
You wait. As soon as the live stream ends, you're gonna get a screenshot from me, and you'll know why, because I'll have found the reason that what disco mode is for.
So East Coast Reef says the biggest expense in electronics is the actual LED. So the biggest portion of the list price is anyway, yeah, which is I think I don't know if it's all LEDs that are used in the hobby, but a lot of them are Philips, and Philips have the license on everything. So you have to pay Philips to buy their LEDs. I think there are LEDs from other companies like Cree and Osram. Anyway, I don't really know, but yeah, a lot of them you have to license the LEDs from various other companies like Philips. Yeah. Anyway, that's all. I'm going to go to sleep now. So thank you all for joining, guys, and we will see you next week with no more light chat.
See you later.